Hi.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Flora, and I'm a guide at my private Paris. And today I'm so lucky to be here with Alex, my
Hello.
friend.
I'm Alexandre. I'm also a guide at my private Paris. Maybe you've been talking to me if you were planning your holiday in Paris. We are right now in the Dordogne region. So it's in the southwestern part of France. It's halfway between Toulouse and Bordeaux. And it's a gorgeous region, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm very lucky because Alex, you are from here.
Yeah.
This is your region, and this
Exactly.
is actually a very special castle. We're at the Château de Castelnaud, and I think you know it very well.
Yeah, because I actually grew up in the village next to the castle. So I've been spending my childhood there, and when I was a student, I've been working in the castle as a guide during five
lucky.
summers. So
5 summers.
I know it very well, and I'm super happy to introduce you to it.
It's like your second home.
Yeah, basically.
Lucky guy.
So if you want to have a look at it, we can just turn around. And there is also this gorgeous view on the valley.
On the valley of the Dordogne,
Yeah.
the river Dordogne.
So here we are. So this castle is a castle from the Middle Ages. So first of all, do you know when the Middle Ages started and stopped?
It's a big time.
Yeah, it's basically the longest period in history.
Okay.
So it lasted more than 1,000 years. Okay.
All right.
So it started around the end of the 5th century.
5th century.
Yeah.
So like the end of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, exactly. At the collapse of the Roman Empire, historians tend to say that it's the beginning of the Middle Ages.
All right.
And they also agree to say that the end of the 15th century marked the end of the Middle Ages.
End of the 15th century.
Yeah, end of the 15th century. Why? Because Christopher Columbus discovered America.
Okay.
And it's the beginning of the Renaissance period with a new style in architecture and way of life. Okay? And with Castelnaud, we're going to focus on only the second half of the Middle Ages. So from
Alright.
the 10th century to the 15th. Okay?
Okay. So we're before Columbus.
Yeah, before
Um,
Columbus, we're going to focus mainly on the 100 Years' War, which happened mainly during the 14th century.
Between France and.
England.
All right.
And so to talk to you a little bit more about the place, so the name of the place is Castelnaud, and Castelnaud in Occitan, so the language of the region in the Middle Ages, Castelnaud, it means new castle.
Yeah. Castle, Castel.
Castel,
Pretty similar,
no,
right?
new. Okay.
Okay. No new.
Castelnaud. And so it makes sense when we know that the first archaeological artifacts that we found here in this place, they are from the 13th century.
13.
13. So it's quite late for a castle because the first castles appeared around the 9th and 10th century. They were
Okay.
only made of wood. So this is why today we don't have anything left of those castles.
Yeah, because it was all destroyed
But
over
this
time.
one is Castelnaud because it's quite late in its construction.
Okay.
And we know that in 1215 there was a lord that decided to build a castle at this exact spot.
All right.
And this lord's name was Bernard de Castelnaud.
Bernard de Castelnaud.
Bernard de Castelnaud, and what we know about this lord is that he was a Cathar. Do you know about the Cathars?
Cathars. Something from the region here. Something that has to do with religion.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, Cathars are considered as heretics because they are not good Christians.
All right.
They refuse the authority of the Pope, and that creates very quickly a big problem because the Pope is not happy about that, as you can bet. And basically, the Pope in Rome with the King of France, they decide to create an alliance and to create an army to crush those heretics. The Cathars are all around the south of France. So the King of France creates this big army
Yeah.
with a very famous knight at his head. And this knight's name is Simon de Montfort. You heard of him?
Simon de
Yeah?
Montfort. Yes.
Okay. So we know that Simon de Montfort came here in Castelnaud in 1215 and he managed to crush the whole castle and he killed Bernard de Castelnaud.
Oh my God. Okay.
So we know that there was a castle there in 1215, but there's nothing left of it today.
Of it. Okay.
Okay.
And so why here? Why this specific place?
Okay, so because it's very strategic. So the first castle was completely destroyed, and a few years after that, in the 1230s, the King of France himself decides to build a second castle at the exact same spot.
All right.
Why? Because we are very high. We can see that
We
we
are
are
high.
130 meters
130 meters.
above the level of the river. Okay, so we're very high, and that allows us to control everything.
Yeah,
around.
we have a good view on the valley. We
Yeah,
can even see
come
other
closer
castles.
if you want.
Let's have a look at the view. So
we can control everything around. We can see the invaders coming. Also, we have the river at the feet of the cliff, so we can control the traffic on the river, because in the Middle Ages we didn't have the roads that we have today.
exactly.
So the river was very useful to carry goods and products and everything. So it's very important, and each castle forced the boats to pay taxes when they were
Alright.
passing by the village.
So
okay?
from an economical point of
Yeah,
view,
exactly.
pretty important.
Pretty important. And the last thing is, as I mentioned, we are on a cliff.
Yeah.
So that means that the invaders cannot attack us from the east, from the west, and from the south.
What about the north?
The north is the hill. And actually, that's the only weak point of the castle. And we're going to mention that later during the tour.
Okay.
That's the only weak point that we have here in Castelnaud. And basically, when we build the castle, we're going to try to protect the north. And
Because
we're going to
that's
put
where
all
the
our
enemies
defenses
come.
on the north side, because we know that the invaders are going to come from the north. Okay?
Yeah, they can't come from this side.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And so here in Castelnaud and in Périgord in Dordogne, during the Middle Ages, we are part of the Duchy of Aquitaine.
Aquitaine.
And maybe you know the name of a very famous Duchess of Aquitaine who
I
used to
think I
live
do.
there in the Middle Ages. Do you know her name? What is it?
Aliénor.
Exactly. So in French we say Aliénor, and in English we say Eleanor.
Okay.
So Eleanor of Aquitaine was the Duchess of Aquitaine in the 12th century. And first of all, she married the King of France.
Okay.
But things didn't go that well between the two of them, because Eleanor was a very clever woman. She was strong. She had a lot of power, and she could, in some ways, influence the king's decisions. And that didn't go very well with the king's official advisors, because they were losing their power.
Yeah.
And so very quickly, they decided to cancel the marriage. We're not talking about divorce, because divorce would
they
be
don't have
anachronistic.
Yeah, sure.
But they simply canceled the
Yeah,
marriage.
like it was
So
invalid.
Eleanor throws the crown of France, and she comes back to Aquitaine. And a few months after that, she remarries another guy, who is the future king of England this time, Henry II Plantagenet.
And I think they have famous sons.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of John Lackland and Richard the Lionheart.
Famous guys. So we're talking about Richard Lionheart's mom.
Yeah.
She was the Duchess around here, really powerful woman, and actually one of the most famous women of the Middle Ages.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And with this marriage with the King of England, basically she became the Queen of England. And that also means that the whole Aquitaine Duchy became English.
So she went from being the Queen of France to being the Queen of England.
Exactly,
that was a pretty
that's the
powerful
only
woman.
queen in the world, in world history, to have been wearing both the crown of France and the crown of England.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool, isn't it? And so the Duchy of Aquitaine became English, and this is how things got worse in the second half of the Middle Ages. Because basically, Aquitaine was English and the rest of France was French. So this was in the 12th century. So now we're going to go 200 years later, in the 14th century. And the problem that we have is that in 1337, the King of France is dying. And the problem is, he doesn't have any heirs.
That's a problem.
So we don't know who's going to be the future King of France. So we have two options. The first one would be the nephew of this king, Edward II of England.
Ooh, that sounds like problems.
That's a big problem, because when we look at the genealogical tree, a nephew is quite close from the King of France, so it would have legitimacy to become the future King of France.
Yeah, but the guy
he's
would
English.
be King of England and France.
And God knows that we don't want any King of England on the throne of France.
No, we don't.
So the second option that we have is a cousin from the King of France, whose name is Philippe de Valois. But once again, when you look at the genealogical tree, a cousin is more distant from the king, so he has less legitimacy. But he's French. So we're going to choose this one. And this is how the 100 Years' War will start.
Which basically is a 100-year war that we had against England.
Well, it didn't last 100 years, but 116 years.
So even more.
1453.
Yeah.
And basically, during 116 years, France and England were fighting. And they were trying to conquer the land of each other.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because basically, where we are here, there was a time when this was British.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so basically the Chateau de Castelnaud, as we were part of the Duchy of Aquitaine and mainly British, there were a lot of fights during this war here around Castelnaud and Baynac, the stronghold in front of us. And so you have to imagine that basically here in Castelnaud we were British, I mean English, and in front of us, 3 kilometers away from there,
That was the French.
Baynac was French.
Wow.
So you can imagine all the fights that we got there. And during the 116 years of war, the castle of Castelnaud changed hands 7 times.
7 times.
7 times.
During
That's
the 100-year
enormous.
wars. Yeah.
That's a lot. So it doesn't mean that there were necessarily 7 attacks, 7 siege against the castles, because you can change hands through marriages, through negotiations as well,
Yeah.
through betrayal.
Ah,
that works a lot. But it was there was a lot of tension around here. And we know that towards the end of the 100 Years' War in 1442, the King of France creates this big army to conquer Aquitaine. He wants to get Aquitaine back in France, so he decides to conquer it and take it castle by castle. And so we know that in 1442, the King of France arrives there in Castelnaud and he tries to besiege the castle. Okay?
Okay.
So what we're going to do during this tour is we are going to pretend that we are the French army, we are the
All
French
right.
soldiers, and we're going to attack Castelnaud.
Sounds
And we
good.
go through all the defenses. I mean, we're going to try. And
We're gonna
just right there, you can see our blacksmith who's going to do swords and arms for us.
Yeah, we're gonna need that to fight the British.
So he's just starting the fire, he's just starting his day. But he's creating a lot of different things like swords, crossbows, armors, pieces of armors. There were more than 85 different pieces in an armor. So
How
it has
many? How many?
85
85 different pieces in an armor.
in an armor during the Middle Ages.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work to do.
And many of them are made of metal, so
Yeah, exactly.
So-
From steel.
this looks pretty real.
Yeah.
So there was something like this here, you think, back in the day?
Yeah. Because right here we are in the lower court of the castle. So this is where all the stables were, all the different craftsmen.
Oh,
the
so it was probably
blacksmith.
very busy.
It was quite busy actually. But the village is down here. So basically in times of peace, the people from the village were staying there. And this was more used as a marketplace.
Okay.
Okay. But during the times of war, of course, when the castle was attacked, people were coming
They
here
would come
to get
here.
protected by the surrounding walls. So as I was telling you, we are going to pretend that we are in 1442 trying
Okay.
to attack the castle.
Okay, guys.
So first of all, what we
1442.
are doing is we're going to stay quite far from the castle and we're going to analyze the situation.
Okay, let's analyze the
Because
situation.
we don't want
Alex.
to
Let's do that.
we don't want to lose all our soldiers.
No.
Because we have the whole region to come here.
We have many battles to fight.
Exactly,
So we
we have-
can't lose. We
No.
can't afford to
So first
lose
of all, we
many
need to
people.
think.
Okay, let's think.
First of all, we need to think about what we're gonna do, and we're gonna try to use our war engines.
Okay.
Okay? So we are gonna pretend that we are like 200 meters away from the castle, and we're gonna try to see which war engines we can use to
Okay.
crush and to destroy the surrounding walls of the castle. So this way we can enter the castle without losing our men. Okay?
Sounds good.
So let's climb up those stairs, and we're gonna continue our talk up
Let's
there.
do.
And look at the view; it's just stunning.
So beautiful. What are the trees over there? What are the trees, Alex? The
Those are
plantations?
nut trees.
Nut trees.
Yeah.
Oh, nuts
We have
are
a lot of
typical from here, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of nuts around here. And there is a label on the noix du Périgord, the nuts from Périgord. It's very famous and we do a lot of cakes. Look at that. This is the most beautiful view of the castle. It's like we are above the trees, above the river. It's just gorgeous. That's my favorite view of the castle. Okay, so let's move on to this part.
Let's move on to thinking through the attack. All right.
So we are still in 1442, we are still the French soldiers and we are attacking the castle. So as I was telling you at the beginning of the tour, we are arriving from the north.
Yes, because the north is the unprotected
This is-
side.
Exactly.
The enemies
it's
can
the
only
easiest,
come.
It's the easiest side because all the other sides are cliffs.
Yes.
So we can't attack from there. So we're coming from the north And we have this surrounding wall in front of us that we are going to try to destroy.
Okay.
Why? Because what we want to do is try to capture the English captain.
Where's the English captain right now?
He's hiding
that tower?
at the top of
The keep?
the tower, of the keep, exactly. So we're going to have to go through all the defenses to try to catch him.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
So first of all,
Can
we're
do
going to
this.
use our war engines. So do you know any names of war engines that we could use in the Middle Ages to attack a castle?
Catapult? Do
Yeah.
you say that in English?
You say that in
Catapult?
English, and it's actually what I wanted you to say. So we are not going to use a catapult in the Middle Ages because catapults are engines invented by the Romans. So during the
Oh.
ancient time,
Okay.
and it looks like a sort of a big wooden spoon on a
Okay,
system
yeah.
of swing,
Yeah.
and you use it with a string
Yeah.
made of animal fibers.
Okay.
Okay, and those strings used to work very well in the Roman Empire because it was located on the edges of the Mediterranean Sea,
Yeah.
where the weather is always very hot and dry, and basically the strings
Okay.
could work with that kind of weather.
You mean here they would break?
Here, with the wetness that we have in the air, with a lot of rain, they would just distort,
Okay.
but don't work
And don't
anymore.
work. All right. So,
So
what are
this
we
is
going to
why
use?
catapults, we don't use them anymore in the Middle Ages. It's not powerful enough.
Okay.
But we are going to invent other machines, other engines, much more powerful. The first one that we have right there behind you is what we call merely a stone throwing machine. Okay.
Okay. Stone
There's no
throwing
name
machine.
in English for this one. In French we say a bricole,
Bricole.
but in English there's no name. It's just a stone throwing machine. And so this one, how does it work? So basically there's a scaffold on the ground, an upright in the middle, and then you have the horizontal arm. At the end of this arm, you've got a rope and what we call the sling. It's basically a leather bag in which we're gonna try to put some projectiles to
Like
throw at the
stones.
castle.
You put the stone?
Stones, anything you find around the machine.
That can
Stones,
hurt
pieces
your
of wood.
enemy.
Exactly. So we're gonna put stones inside. So what we need to do first of all is to undo the ropes at the back of the horizontal arm. So this way the other arm can come down on the floor and we can put something inside the sling.
Okay.
Okay. So as I told you, any projectiles that you find around the machines that are about 15 to 20 kilos. Okay.
Okay.
And that's the whole problem. So this machine works only with the human force. So basically we need to use our arms to throw projectiles. And of course, the wall in front of us is very thick.
And this is going to be slow, no?
This is going to be slow. Not only slow, but also not very powerful.
Okay.
A projectile of 15 kilo is not going to do anything to
It's-
this big
yeah.
wall in front of us. So this first machine in the Middle Ages, we're not going to use it to attack a castle, but rather to defend it. So this
Okay.
is why you've got another stone throwing machine
On
right
the
in
other
front of
side,
us.
because that's the one they're
Exactly.
going to use against us.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. Okay. Okay.
Exactly. So this one for
So-
us, as a French army attacking the castle,
Not so good.
not very useful.
Okay, next
We're
one.
gonna move on to the second one. As you can see, it's way bigger.
It is bigger, longer rope.
Yeah. So this one is what we call a mangonel. A mangonel, the difference that we have between the stone throwing machine and the mangonel is that for the mangonel, we're not going to use human force, we're not going to use our arms anymore.
It's
We're going to
big.
create what we call a counterweight that you can see right there. It's the big wooden box at the back of the horizontal arm.
That one.
Yeah, that one. And in this counterweight, we're going to put stones. And the stones are going to make the force of the machine.
Okay.
Okay? So with this machine, it's going to be way more powerful because we're going to be able to throw stone balls of 50 kilos.
Okay, so that's way heavier. 50
That's-
kilos is like almost me.
Yeah.
I weighed a little bit more, but almost me.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And with the invention of that machine, we are understanding that basically stone balls that we cut spherically are going to be way more powerful and efficient than mere projectiles, because as they are cut, they're going to be way more precise.
Okay.
And our goal is to be touching the wall always at the same spot, so we can make a bridge
to break it.
to
yeah.
break it. Okay, so it's way more precise and way more powerful. But we still have a problem with this machine.
There's a but. I was
There's a but.
feeling.
There's always a but.
Oh my god.
And the problem that we have with this machine is that the stones inside the counterweight,
Yeah.
they are basically moving when the
Ah.
system is moving. So that means that the throwing is not going to be precise enough to be reaching the wall always at the same spot.
Okay, so what is this one good for? Because I
It's
feel
good
we're
for
not going to
attacks.
use this one.
It's good for attacks, but not good enough for Castelnaud. Because the
Ah,
wall in front
not
of
good
us...
enough for Castelnaud.
Exactly.
Because this is not just any castle.
No. Because the wall that we have in front of us,
It's pretty thick.
it's 2 meters thick.
2 meters thick, so
it's
that's like
super big. Like from me to you.
that's how thick the wall is, guys.
Yeah, and as you can see, it looks, when we attack it from the north, it looks like the prow of a boat.
Yeah, okay.
And so
Yes.
basically when we are
That
throwing
shape.
stone balls, they're just gonna touch it, but they're not gonna break it.
So that's why it's built this way. So
It's-
it's
everything
facing
was on
north,
purpose.
which is they know the enemy is gonna come from this side. So that's why it has that shape. So our bullets are gonna just touch the wall but not break
Not
it.
gonna break it.
Super
Exactly.
clever. So what are we gonna do? We still need to attack this
Yeah,
castle.
so we're gonna try the third engine that we have at our disposal. And this is the famous trebuchet.
Trebuchet.
Yeah,
We
trebuchet.
don't have a name in English.
It's the same.
Trebuchet.
So the difference that we're gonna have between the mangonel and the trebuchet is once again when we look at the counterweight. When we look,
over
if we
there,
come closer, we can see that the counterweights and the trebuchet,
it has a different shape.
yeah, it has a different shape, and it's also on a system of swing, and it's open on the top. So basically, you can choose the number of stones that you put inside. So you can choose the weight of the counterweight, and you can choose the distance of throwing.
Oh,
so it's a
that's
much
good.
more precise machine.
Yeah, the distance of throwing. That's good that you can choose it because otherwise you just.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to come close to the castle to attack it.
And we
That's
like
great.
that
We like that.
because we don't want them to
kill
steal
us.
them- to kill us. We need to kill them first.
So how to use it? So as I was telling you, the problem that we have is that when the machine is resting, the counterweight obviously is down because this
Yeah.
is where all the weight is, and the arm is up. And what we need to do is to put a stone ball like those ones behind
Oh,
me.
we have some here.
Yeah,
This is what they look like.
exactly. We need to put one of these stone balls within the sling, so within the leather bag, but it's up there. So we need to find a way to put it down.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this rope, this vertical rope that we can see right there. It goes through the pulley right there, and then it goes around what we call the winch. This is the horizontal arm up there.
That's the horizontal arm, and the rope goes around it.
And so basically we're gonna put the little spins there to turn the winch. So the rope goes around the winch, and the arm comes down, so we can put the stone ball within the sling. Okay.
Okay.
So you have to imagine that the leather bag is right in the middle, right here, and we have 2 or 3 soldiers carrying the stone ball to put it inside the leather bag.
Okay.
So now that our machine is loaded, but we can still not fire. We can't
What?
fire right now
Why?
because it's very dangerous.
I want to fire.
You can't fire right now because the vertical rope that you have there is very tight,
Okay.
and if it breaks, it's gonna hurt everyone around the machine.
Okay.
So we need to find a way to maintain the arm down without using the rope.
All right.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this. We're gonna use these little pieces of metal right there. If you come closer, you can see it. This is what we call the jaw, like the human jaw.
A jaw.
A
Okay.
jaw. And we're gonna put this jaw around the little metal skin that we have at the head of the arm up there. So when the arm is down, you have to imagine that we can put a piece of metal inside, and we maintain everything by putting a piece of wood.
A piece of wood there where you have your fingers, so
Exactly.
it's stuck in
So
there.
that maintains the arm down, and the rope now is resting.
Okay. So it doesn't break.
It doesn't
And
break
then we
anymore.
can fire.
So we can just remove the rope from the winch and from the pulley. We put the
Yeah.
pulley down, and our little piece of wood inside the jaw is linked to a rope, and we just have to pull on the rope to make the machine work.
Okay.
And so when we're pulling on the rope, we have a stone ball of 100 kilos that goes at a speed of 180 kilometers an hour and at a distance
really
of
fast.
200 meters. So it's super fast, super precise, it's just great.
So that's perfect. So we have our
That's-
weapon.
yeah.
Are we gonna fire now?
So we're gonna try to fire against Castelnaud.
Yeah.
We're actually gonna do that in 1442 as the French army. But once again, as I was telling you, the wall in front of us looks like the prow of a boat.
It's a very
So-
good wall.
Even if our stone balls are 100 kilos, they're just gonna touch it but not break it.
So what are we gonna do?
So now we understand that our war engines are useless against the castle.
God.
So that's the problem. So we don't know what to do. The only solution that we have now is to try to attack the castle with our soldiers. And
But-
that's what we're gonna do.
We're gonna attack with our soldiers, but we have so many other battles to fight, and we don't want
Yeah,
them
but we
to
have
die.
no other option. That's the first castle that we come to when we arrive in Dordogne, and we really need it. So we're
It's
gonna
an
attack the
important
castle.
one. It's a very strategic one. It's
It's
the
a
first one in
strategic one,
Dordogne
yeah.
on our way south
On our
to
side from Paris.
to free all of Aquitaine.
Exactly.
And we can negotiate.
We're gonna talk about that later.
Okay. So we're gonna go with our soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. So we are still in 1442, and we're gonna pretend that we are attacking the castle. Okay?
Okay.
So we're gonna come down to the lower court where we started the tour.
All
so
right.
I can explain to you all the different defenses that we're gonna be trying to break to catch the English captain who is still trying to protect the castle from the keep, the top of the keep. Okay? And this is one of the best views on the castle
This is a great view.
because we can see the lower court, we can see the village downhill, and we can clearly imagine all the people trying to find a refuge by coming here in the lower court to get protected by the surrounding walls and the English captain.
Yeah. All right.
So let's
Should we
go
go for
down
it?
the stairs.
Let's go. Yeah, that's very beautiful.
Yeah, so you can see
What
right
is
there, this is the medieval garden of the castle.
They have a medieval garden. So what does it mean, a medieval garden?
So basically this is just plants to use for medicine.
And that's the way they used to do it, right? Like in little squares?
Yeah,
I think we have one like this in
exactly.
Paris.
All the things that you can see today in the castle, it's because we found plants from the Middle Ages, and we have the absolute certitude that this existed in the Middle Ages.
Yes, because they have it in like the medieval manuscripts and books, and
Exactly,
we know that's
exactly.
the way they used to have.
And it's actually the same for the
Gardens.
trebuchet. So the trebuchet that we saw, they are real size war engines. And we've been trying to recreate them thanks to the engineers that created it
Okay.
and their manuscripts. But it was very difficult for us because basically the engineers were very few during the Middle Ages, and they tended to be very proud of their work. So when they were giving us the recipe to build the trebuchet, they were over exaggerating everything.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult for us to recreate them.
And what is this?
So this is a tent. So nowadays, behind this tent, we can see medieval sword fighting shows. Sorry.
Sword fighting show.
Yeah, basically it's a little theater play that you can still see every day.
And what is that little animal on the tent? It's like
it's a lion.
A lion?
Yeah, it's a golden lion, and that's the emblème. How do you say that in English?
Like
It's the symbol of Castelnaud.
okay, a lion.
A lion, a golden lion.
That
Okay.
reminds me of Richard Lionheart and all the
Yeah, well,
British influence
yeah, that's
here.
very
They were here for
interesting that-
such a long time.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned Richard the Lionheart because he actually came here in this valley.
He was here. Richard
No,
was here.
he didn't come to Castelnaud, but he came to Baynac. And he
Baynac is
managed
the
to
enemy
take, exactly,
castle just across the river.
exactly. And we know that on his way back from Jerusalem, because
He went to Jerusalem to the Crusades.
exactly, he went to the Crusades, and on his way back to England, he stopped here in France and he took the Château de Castelnaud by force. Okay, he didn't come to Castelnaud, but he came very close.
He had good weapons,
Yeah,
not like us.
and he was very proud and very sure of himself. So, so it
Maybe
kind of
that's
helped.
the captain we need.
We're gonna go this way, close to the
Yeah, I'll follow you.
to the higher court wall. And so
Wow,
you can
look at
see
the artichokes. Well, they're little. They could have picked them a while ago. But it's beautiful. Oh, and they have sage here. So medicinal plants.
Yeah, used to cure people from diseases.
So great. Oh, and rosemary over there. Bit of everything. Okay.
So let's go back to our war. So we're gonna pretend that once again we arrive from the north and we managed to break this first surrounding wall. This is the lower court surrounding wall. That was kind of easy. We kind of used ladders and ropes and we found a way to come inside.
To break in.
So now we are in the lower court and we're gonna get closer to the higher court surrounding wall. This is the second surrounding wall that we're gonna try to break to reach the keep.
Wait, how many walls do we have to break before we reach the keep? Two. We broke one, and there's just another one to go.
Yeah, exactly. The lower court wall behind me and the higher
court wall.
Exactly.
Let's go see the higher court wall.
I'm gonna come closer so I can explain to you how we're gonna make it.
So here we are.
Back in the lower court.
Back in the lower court.
You know, I was telling you it was used as a marketplace in times of peace, and in times of war, the villagers, the people from the village, came here to be protected. Okay. So we are invading the castle, and we need to reach the top of this tower right behind me. Okay.
Yes.
But we're gonna be facing difficulties, of course.
Of course.
So we have two ways to enter the higher court.
Okay.
We can go through the entrance door that we can see right.
That would be amazing.
Right behind us.
Just let us in.
We can go through the entrance door, or we can go through the wall.
Through the wall.
Which one is the easiest?
I don't know. Do we have an invisibility cape or something?
We're not in Harry Potter. I'm sorry.
Oh God. Okay. So the first one seems easier, but I feel we're not invited. We're not welcome
let's
here.
say the easiest one would be to go through the door.
Yes.
That's what we would tend to think.
We would like that.
But of course, when you defend a medieval castle, you know that the door is going to be your weakest point.
Yes.
So you're going to put all your defenses
there,
close to the door.
Okay. And we don't want to lose our men.
We're going to try to save our men. So we're going to go through the wall. So we are facing this wall. How are we going to do? We basically have three possibilities, three options.
Okay.
We can go below the wall, through the wall, or
above the wall.
So above the wall, how are we going to do that? How are we going to go above the wall? What options could we use?
Climb?
We can climb with ladders, maybe.
Yeah.
Thing is, this wall is 15 meters high. And in the Middle Ages, we know that we don't have ladders that high because they're cut in one piece of wood. Yeah. So basically the wall is too high to use ladders. Okay. So we give up the ladders.
Okay, I have one question because there's those cliche things that I kind of hate about, because we're trying to climb, but there's going to be our enemies on the other side, and they're not really going to throw oil at us, right?
We're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
We're going to talk about that. It's very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're still facing this wall and we want to go up.
Okay.
How do we do? We don't use ladders.
Okay.
What else can we use? Any ideas?
I don't know. Arrows? We can throw arrows? No.
What we could use is grapple hooks with ropes. You can just try to throw them and climb with the ropes.
With ropes.
But you have to imagine that up the wall there is what we call basically the soldiers are waiting for us up there.
Of course,
there is a path, and they're waiting for us, and they're going to throw things on us.
They're definitely going to throw things.
So once again, we give up the ropes.
We give up the ropes. What are we going to do?
So we could use what we call a belfry. You know, maybe you've seen that in films like The Lord of the Rings. You know, it's those big towers on wheels that you can push, so you can access directly
get high,
the top of the wall.
Like a moving tower.
We know that this existed in the Middle Ages. This is true.
Oh.
But this never happened here. Why? Because we are on the top of a cliff, 130 meters above the level of the river, and it's basically impossible to bring it here.
Okay.
So once again, we give up. So we're not going to go up the wall. So we can try to go through it. We know that in the Middle Ages, during some sieges of castles, some soldiers were able to dig within the foundations of the wall, put fire, and the wall would collapse. We know that this existed in some castles, but once again, not in Castelnaud. Why? Because you can clearly see behind you that the wall is thicker on the foundations than on the top.
It was a very good castle. It was very well
everything
built.
Was on purpose.
Of course.
Military defense.
Yes.
So once again, the wall is too thick, so we can't go through it. It's going to take too much time, knowing that we have soldiers up there throwing
waiting for us and throwing stuff. So okay, are we going to go under?
We could try that. Once again, we know that in the Middle Ages, during some attacks, some soldiers would be able to dig underground galleries to go down the wall and appear by surprise within
That
the
would
high
take a
court.
while.
This happened in the north of France, where castles on built or built on soil, on earth.
Yeah?
Here we are on
It's
the rocky
on the
peak.
rock. That's gonna be.
So once again, too much time.
I still think negotiation is the best option we have, Alex. I think we have to go and
Now
talk
we're
to
gonna
them.
we're gonna carry on.
Helicopter.
This didn't exist in the Middle Ages.
Helicopters? That's how we could attack the castle. A helicopter.
So we just give up on the wall and we're gonna try to go through the entrance door. So what do? We are facing this entrance door, so this is not yet the entrance door of the higher court. This is the entrance door of what we call the barbican. The barbican is basically a building that you're gonna build around the higher court door to protect it. As I was telling you, we know that this is the weakest point of the castle, so you just build everything you can around the door.
Yeah.
So we are facing this barbican, and we know that in 1442 things were a little bit different. You have to imagine that this stone bridge that we can see nowadays in front of the door, this
That's
stone
what
bridge,
people are crossing right now.
exactly, this didn't exist, and we know that there was a drawbridge. You know, a bridge that comes up and down
Yeah.
in case you're attacked. So there's a drawbridge, and right behind this drawbridge there is a ditch that is 3 to 4 meters deep. So what are we gonna do? We know once again that we have crossbowmen waiting for us on the top of the barbican, and the only option that we have to break the drawbridge would be to use bélier. How do you say that in
I
English?
don't know how you say that. Like a big.
A big wooden piece of wood that you just
that you
use to break
to
the door.
destroy. I think that was
Exactly.
pretty obvious. They got it. They
But
got it.
the problem that we have is that there's a ditch before the drawbridge.
Yeah.
So we're gonna need to fill the ditch with everything we find,
wow.
pieces of wood, stones, anything. Once again, it's gonna take so long. So it's gonna be very difficult. But we're gonna pretend, even if it's not true, we're gonna pretend that we managed to break the barbican drawbridge,
'Cause we're
and
that
we're gonna
good.
enter that building. Okay?
Okay. Let's go in then.
Yeah. So now we are inside this barbican, and we have basically traps waiting for us everywhere.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get in. So we are in the barbican, so we managed to break the drawbridge right before us. We are arriving in this room, and there are traps everywhere. The first one is just there.
Yeah.
You can see it.
There's a hole.
It's basically a hole
It's
right after the
open.
drawbridge. This hole that you can see up there is what we call a breakback trap, because when you go under it, it's going to break your back. Because
Got it.
basically you're going to have people throwing a lot of different things at you from up there.
From up there.
Exactly.
So we broke this. We're like, oh my god, we made it.
We made it.
We're in, and boom.
And like 1
they
meter
throw-
after.
they throw stuff at us.
So what kind of stuff do you think they could throw at us?
That was my question.
Yeah.
Well, maybe stones.
Of
or
course,
water.
stones. Here in Castelnaud, we have a lot of stones, so we're not gonna hesitate about the stones. We're gonna throw a lot of stones. So this is the main thing that we're gonna use. But we can also throw different things. What else do you think?
I don't know. Yeah, water. Could you throw water like?
That
don't
happened
really
in the
have-
Middle Ages, but this is not really efficient. That just kind of burns the skin a little bit, but it doesn't kill.
We want to kill.
We want to kill.
We want to kill.
We want to keep our castle for ourselves, so we want to kill the invaders. So we're gonna throw what we call quicklime. It's a mix between
course.
pork fat and vegetable resin. Okay.
Okay.
So this enters the armor and this burns your skin.
Ah.
So it's very, very efficient.
Efficient.
We're gonna
Okay.
use that. And most of the time in the films that you see in the movies, you can see soldiers throwing oil.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
This never ever happened.
Ever, guys.
Happened.
Never.
You never use oil in the Middle Ages simply because oil was a very rare
Yeah,
liquid.
it's so expensive.
It's super expensive, so you only use it for cooking
Exactly.
and for surviving, but you don't throw it at your enemies.
Guys, you don't throw
No.
boiling oil at your enemy. It never happened. Oil is expensive. You use it for cooking, okay? Not to throw at your enemies. Not true.
So
Okay,
yeah,
that's
basically,
it.
I think I made my point with the breakback trap.
Yes. Okay. They
So
threw
we're gonna go-
stones at us.
Yeah, we're gonna try to go under it, and so we're arriving in this barbican, and you can see that just up there is a second one.
Another one throwing
Yeah.
stones
So
through
what
here
you,
as well.
what you would do when you enter the barbican is come and get stuck to this wall, because basically you have arrow slits in the wall in front of us, where you
What's
have
that?
arrow men
Oh.
throwing arrows at us.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
This is
so
so
you come
awesome.
close to this wall and you have the second barbican.
Okay, so you run from one and then.
Yeah, you can see the one arrow slit just
Oh,
up there.
it's really narrow.
It's a tiny and narrow.
Just
slit
right
in the
there.
wall. Yeah.
So you barely see it. You're running from there because they're throwing stones at
Exactly.
you here. Then here, you're just running away. You don't even see that, and
Yeah.
then get an arrow.
And you have another one up there
Oh, there's
that
another
is
one.
very cleverly placed.
Yeah,
right
sort
in
of
the keep.
in an angle.
And it's right above the higher court door that I was mentioning a few minutes
So
ago.
if you escape the arrows here, you run towards the gate of the higher court,
Yeah.
and that you might get an arrow
But
there
it's
too.
not that easy, because right here,
That
as
didn't
you guys
seem
maybe
easy.
see, we are standing on a wooden part with a staircase, and you have to imagine that this staircase was simply removed during attacks.
Okay.
So that means
Oh.
that when you come
So how
out
do
of the
you get
barbican,
from here to there?
well, basically when you come out of the barbican, you fall in another ditch. And you need to reach the higher court door that is up there. Okay.
So what do you do?
So it's going to be very tough once again, because the higher court door is very cleverly placed right at the feet of the keep. And the keep, the big tower, is going to have its defenses as well. You can see halfway up the keep that there is a wooden part up there. This is what we call the hoardings. And basically you're going to have soldiers once again waiting for you up there and throwing different things at you.
Oh my God.
But there is an easy way to get rid of this hoarding. How could we do that?
Throw stones? I feel like everything is about throwing stones.
No, basically it's made of wood.
We can burn it?
Yeah, exactly.
We
We can
throw
burn
an
it.
arrow with
A burning arrow.
fire. I'm
Exactly.
getting good at this. I'm getting good at this.
So this is why the hoarding was the first invention, and then the evolution of the hoarding is going to be what we call the machicolations. The machicolations, you can find them up there right at the top of the keep. Those are the little tiny black holes
Yeah.
oriented down.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's exactly the same system as the hoardings. You have basically soldiers putting their feet around the hole and throwing things between their feet.
Okay, but it's not
Okay.
made of wood, so
It's made of
So
stone.
we can't burn it.
Exactly, you can burn it. So
Okay.
way more difficult to get rid of those.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna tell us about this, Alex, but there's another thing is that these guys, us coming here trying to attack this castle, their armor is pretty heavy too, right?
Super
I mean, it's
heavy.
not just trying to get through the stones and the arrows and all of
Yeah.
that.
The armor can go up to 30 kilos.
Okay, so like half my weight.
Yeah, basically.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, very heavy, very difficult to move, very difficult to fight.
It's a nightmare.
So now I'm gonna tell you how this ended in 1442.
Dun, 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 dun.
So we clearly understand that it's basically impossible to take the castle by force. So what we are doing in 1442 is we are negotiating.
Told you
within-
guys. I told you. I
We are
told you we had to
negotiating.
negotiate.
Yeah, that's the only way.
So they
Because-
negotiated?
Yeah, they basically negotiated with the English captain inside because, as we were saying at the beginning of the tour, they had to conquer the whole region, the whole southwestern part of France,
Yeah.
castle by castle. So we don't want to kill all of our guys here in Castelnaud. So we negotiate, and we give 300 pieces of gold to the English captain. So he gives up the castle.
Okay, he gave it up
He gave it up.
for money.
Yeah, exactly. He gave it up. He took his money and he fled and kept his life.
Okay, so the English guy gave us money, fled, just gave us the castle, which was the entrance to the south and to the French reconquering this whole area.
Yeah, exactly.
So
because it was just
is-
too difficult.
The other British must have hated this guy.
Well, you know, I think they kind of knew that they were losing already. So
Well,
kind
after 100 years
just
of
a guy for
fight.
one castle.
So we are going through this door.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to tell you about this door.
I want to
First of
know
all, look
everything.
how thick it is. It's like super thick, as you can see. So you have to imagine that once again this door was closed. Sorry.
of course the door was closed until we knocked and asked to negotiate.
Once again, I was telling you we are at the feet of the keep with all the defenses above us, and we're gonna try to break this door, but it's very difficult for us because it's very thick, and basically our our piece of wood that we use to break the drawbridge is just too big to carry it here. So we need to find another way. The only solution that we have is maybe to try to hit it with our swords and our axes, but
it's so thick.
there are nails everywhere.
Oh, they have nails on purpose, so
It's on purpose.
more difficult to break.
Exactly.
The door.
So basically, when you're hitting the door with your sword, it's just bounding against the nails, but it doesn't break the wood,
It was built in such a clever way.
wasn't it?
Perfect
So
castle.
now we're gonna enter the higher court that we were trying to reach since the beginning of the tour. So now we made it,
Yes, we made it to the higher court.
and we are inside.
We are inside.
It's my favorite place. It's so great.
So now we're finally by the keep.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, in 1442, the date of our siege, we have to imagine things a little bit differently in this higher court. We know that in 1442 there were only two main elements in this court. There was only the keep
The keep.
right there, and on my right side, the well.
So what we don't have is this.
Basically, all this part didn't exist.
Okay.
This was built at the end of the 100 Years' War.
So just after our attack.
Yeah, but this didn't exist. So we have two main elements. The first one I want to catch your attention to is the well.
That's a big well.
Basically, this is the best part of the castle, the best defended part of the castle, and in case of siege, we need to have water here to survive. We cannot survive without water. The thing is how to have an access to water when you are on a cliff 130 meters above the level of the river.
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's just impossible. The only
had
solutions that you have, no, they didn't have pumps. That didn't exist. The only solution that you have at the time is to dig.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna dig in the rock until you find some water. So as I was telling you, we are 130 meters above the level of the river, and they were lucky enough to find a stream of water within the cliff, within the rock, that is 46 meters deep.
Okay, so they don't have to go all the way
They
down.
don't have to go
river.
all the way down, but you need to think about it. Like 46 meters, it's still
very
super deep. So they really needed water, so they just dug until they found some.
Yeah.
And once again, we need to locate the well very close to the surrounding wall on the north side of the higher court, because we know that our enemies are going to attack from the north and they're going to throw different sorts of projectiles in the higher court. And so if the well is very close to the wall, the projectile is just going to go up and not going to reach it. They're not going to break it.
Is it super important to keep that they
We need
don't
water.
throw
As
things
long as we
here?
have water, we can survive.
Because that's the other thing. We're talking about all the ways to attack a castle, and then negotiating ended up being the best way for us in 1442. But besieging was always a very popular way. Also,
Yeah.
sometimes it was the only way to get a castle
just
because the
wait
defense
around
is
the
so
castle.
good. You just wait until they starve.
Yeah, but it's also
That's why water is so
very
important.
expensive to do a siege.
You need to have time.
You need to have a lot of time, and you're basically paying most of your soldiers every
to
day.
just wait until
just
everyone
wait.
inside starts.
And as you try to reconquer the whole Aquitaine,
Yeah, you
you're
don't
gonna
have time.
siege. You want to you want to keep your soldiers, and you want to keep your money as well. So you're not gonna besiege a castle forever.
Yeah.
Usually a siege lasts from,
It could be years, right?
yeah, that is very, very rare.
Yeah?
But usually a siege is a matter of 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, but not more.
That must be horrible. Anyway, so that's why water is very important.
Very important. And the last element is to put a roof on the well. Why do we need a roof on the well? Because if most of the time our enemies are going to throw pieces of stone or pieces of wood at us, they can also throw different things, and they can do what we call an epidemic war, bacteriologic war.
Oh, bacteriological war.
Yeah, exactly, because they're gonna throw
They could poison the well,
dead
basically.
animals,
Oh, nice.
the kind of things that could poison the well. And if your water is poisoned, you can't survive anymore, and you
Exactly.
just have to give up the castle. So this is why a roof on the well is super important. Okay. So the well is the first element, and the second one is the keep that we have in front of us.
Beautiful keep.
Once again, things were a bit different in 1442. We didn't have the entrance door that you can see right in front of us, up there. We know that the entrance door at the time was on the other side of the tower, on the southern side. So once again, what we had to do is to pass by the bridge
To enter.
to go on the other side of the bridge, and you were once again under the machicolations, so that means that you still had people throwing stones at you. And when you reach the other side of the tower, you realize that the entrance door is not on the ground floor, but on the first floor. So you have to use a ladder to enter the keep. So once again, very tough. So we're going to pretend that we managed to break this door. We are entering the keep, and our English captain is up there, and we're going to try to catch him. When we are entering the keep, we have a staircase to climb to reach the higher floor of the keep. And when we are climbing this staircase, it's a spiral staircase. You know what I mean? It goes like
spiral
this.
staircase,
Yeah.
like medieval
And basically,
style.
when you climb it up, it turns on the right side. And in the Middle Ages, you must always fight with your sword on the right hand, because it's the hand of God. And if you fight with the left hand, it's just the hand of the devil. So you never do that.
I'm a
You always
lefty, I
use-
could not have been a...
Well,
oh my
you
god.
couldn't have been a knight. So you need to use your right hand. And the thing is, when you climb up the staircase, if there is a soldier coming down on the other side and trying to fight with you, he is going to be able to manipulate his sword with the right hand. But you are climbing up and you can't use it
you're
because
stuck.
you're basically stuck between
That's
the
when
two
a
walls.
lefty, comes in.
So once again, you are just stuck in the staircase and you cannot reach the higher floor.
Okay.
So once again, everything was very cleverly thought of. Okay?
So even the way the staircase goes, so you get stuck in the staircase.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why it ended with a negotiation in 1442.
That's great.
And we also know that 1442 was the last time this castle was ever attacked. Okay?
All right, because what happened afterwards? Was the golden age of the castle during the 100-Year War and
Yeah,
this,
in terms
the end of
of-
the Middle Ages,
in
the
terms of-
1400s?
Yeah, in terms of military defenses, the golden age of the castle was during the 100 Years' War. Then the family of Castelnaud kept the castle until the French Revolution. So during the Renaissance period, the War of Religions, the castle belonged to the same family
Okay.
until the French Revolution. In the
So
French,
the late 1700s.
exactly, in 1789,
That's when the French Revolution
revolution
started.
happened, and basically as they were a family of noble, they just fled from France because they didn't want their heads to be cut off.
Like the king and the queen.
Like the king and the queen, exactly. It was a failure, but yeah. And they just fled to England and they gave up the castle.
England again.
Yeah, England again.
There's so many links.
Strong relationship, yeah. to
So they
England.
abandoned the castle. They never came back.
They just gave it up. And so during the 19th century, during the whole 19th century, the castle got abandoned.
Yeah.
Nothing happened here. Wind entered the rooms, trees grew everywhere. The people from the village used the castle as the stone quarry. So they were basically using the stones of the castle to build their own houses.
Their own houses.
downhill.
That makes sense. This was abandoned. It happened
Yeah.
a lot, and at the same time, we feel like, oh my God, they were demolishing
Yeah.
all our beautiful heritage. But
Yeah, that's just the
That's
way they
just what
did it.
happened.
At that time, they didn't have this passion for history and for old stuff. The whole stuff, we just destroy it. we
yeah, they
crush
just
it.
wanted modern things.
The wall on the eastern side, they just threw the stone downhill until the river, and
Wow.
they used the stones of the castle to build the docks of Castelnaud, because there was a lot of traffic on the river. Once again, they were using a lot of boats to carry, for instance, wine from Bordeaux to here, or wood from here to Bordeaux.
Okay.
There was a lot of traffic, and every little village by the river needed to have its own docks.
So they built proper docks with the stones
We
of
have
the castle.
wonderful docks in Castelnaud.
Amazing
because
docks.
they are castle stones, basically. And
All
so,
right.
yeah, this is the story in the 19th century. And then in the 1960s, a family from Beynac, so the village in front of us.
The
village-
castle opposite this one, the
Yeah,
enemies,
the
but
enemies.
the enemies bought. So
Bought.
those 20th century style, no negotiation or attacking or besieging, just buying.
Yeah, exactly. A family from Beynac decided to buy this castle to renovate it. So
That's
they managed to classify the building as a national heritage building. So they got money from the state to start the renovations, and the renovations lasted more than 30 years, and the castle opened to the public in the 1990s. And so nowadays it's one of the most popular castle in southwestern France, because inside you can find a museum of medieval warfare, where you have a collection of pieces of armor, arms, different kind of war engines, and it's very, very interesting.
Okay.
And outside the castle nowadays you also have different sorts of animations. We saw the blacksmiths at the beginning of the tour. You also have medieval sword fighting shows. You have trebuchet firings, and usually kids love it, family love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was very proud to work here for 5 years.
That's amazing. And all of that is very important to collect money and be able to keep this place the way it is, right?
Exactly.
That takes a lot
Exactly.
of, a lot of
So
money.
we can go down the arch right over there.
Okay.
Because you can see pictures and the difference between the castle in the 60s and the castle nowadays. It's very interesting to see, to have an idea. And then we're gonna wrap it up.
Sure.
So you can see on the picture that they did a great job. When you see the black and white picture, how it looked. So this was in 1966.
So that's pretty much when this family bought.
They bought this. They bought
This
a
is what
room.
they bought,
Yeah. And this
And-
is what they did.
and this is what they did. Amazing job.
Yeah.
That's so great. So we can see what it looked like, what it used to look like back then. Great photo.
Okay, so this is pretty much it. So now we're gonna enter the castle on our own, and we're gonna visit the museum.
Yes.
And that's the end of the tour.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank
That was
you
amazing.
for coming. It was my pleasure to have you
Yes.
there.
And thank you for listening to us and watching. And don't hesitate to tip our guide, our amazing guide. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for coming, and it was a pleasure to show you my favorite castle. And please come to France.
Yes.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.